Take a close look at this shot from the remake of The Little Mermaid. Now compare it to this frame from Avatar, The Way of Water. Did you notice the difference? Why does the water in Avatar feel so real and tangible that we want to dive into it ourselves, while after watching the shot from The Little Mermaid, we sense something false? I chose two shots showing only movement, how the characters rise from the bottom to the surface. And what we felt looking at these frames is something more than excuses about bad CGI and The Little Mermaid's lack of budget. For context, The Little Mermaid's budget was $379.8 million. Avatar, The Way of Water, $460 million. Could that $80 million difference have made The Little Mermaid as realistic as Avatar 2? The answer is no, because if you think about it, Avatar is more animation, and it has more in common with the original 1989 Little Mermaid than with the 2023 remake. In one frame, we have a real actress. In the other, completely drawn blue people. But the strangest thing is that we believe the blue people more. So why? I believe this question is far more serious, because it concerns not only The Little Mermaid, but all of modern cinema. But before answering why CGI in films looks so cheap, I want you to answer the question yourself by watching scenes from The Little Mermaid. Aquaman 2. And Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Now let's compare with Avatar. I think you understand. All three previous examples are maximally unnatural and flat graphics, making us wonder, are we watching another episode of Tom and Jerry? But the answer to, why do these films look so cartoonish, lies in the most important thing. How did the sense of weight make Avatar so realistic? You know what the secret of water in Avatar 2 is? James Cameron didn't just simulate water. He filmed in water to give the frame realism. Because while Disney hangs Halle Bailey on wires in a soundstage and draws the ocean around her, Cameron immerses actors in a real tank with underwater motion capture cameras. This is called underwater performance capture, and it's precisely because of this technology, which allows realistic work with water, that it took 13 years for Avatar to come out the way James Cameron envisioned it, real. Think about it. When you move in water, your body reacts to resistance. Muscles tense differently. Hair moves differently. Breathing changes. These are micro movements that our brain reads instantly, even if we don't consciously realize it. In The Little Mermaid or Aquaman, hair and fabrics are simulated on computer over actors hanging on wires. They float in air while animators try to guess the physics of water, but they can't guess what they themselves don't feel. In Avatar, the actors are really in water. Kate Winslet held her breath for 7.5 minutes to film her scene. Sigourney Weaver, at 73, trained several hours a day so her body would move naturally underwater. And the cameras capture it all, every movement, every muscle tension, every finger bend resisting the density of water.
Jim, of course, doesn't like things to just be animated. You're gonna do them for real.
The only thing we're not real is us being blue.
For the water sequences in this movie, we had to figure out how to make some of these creatures fly underwater. And how are we going to do it? Are we going to use this thing called a jetivator and use underwater jets to help make it work?
If it was like a high horsepower squirt gun, we got to be the first people to actually ever take it underwater.
This is what film theorist André Bazin called indexicality, a direct connection between reality and the image on screen. André Bazin's concept of indexicality centers on the belief that film, unlike painting, inherently captures reality because the camera mechanically records light from the world, creating a direct physical link, an index between the image and its subject, establishing cinema's unique power for realism and leaving interpretation to the viewer via techniques like deep focus, contrasting with earlier theories emphasizing cinema's manipulative potential. Light reflected from a real body in real water and hit the camera sensor. Yes, later this body will become blue and tall, but the physics of movement will remain truthful. Even after VFX studio refinement, no computer simulation can replace real interaction with an element, because water isn't just a visual effect, it's a sensation embedded in us from ancient times. We all know what it's like to swim in water, which is why it's difficult for modern films to convince us that the water in their film is real, because our brain knows the difference.
Performance capture here, but a lot of this is the animator's work on what Loac does. What you're seeing in the breakdown is you're seeing the various simulation engines. Water's a really complicated thing. There are sort of multiple states that we identify. The large mass of water when it's disturbed by a whale, and then you get a sort of a smaller spray, and then through to the little droplets. So what you can see here is it broken up into those component parts. These simulations, they take an awfully long time, and having them broken up, it's slightly easier to have control over, the way that ultimately the simulations would look.
Have you noticed that in modern blockbusters, the background is often blurred? This isn't an artistic choice, it's ordinary masking. Blur helps hide unfinished graphics, poorly rendered objects, unconvincing textures. Directors focus our gaze on the actor's face while turning everything else into an abstract blur, like in this example, where the heroes of Aquaman 2 stand on a glacier. We immediately catch the falseness. There's no breath vapor, the snow is footage that can't interact with real actors. Cameron does the opposite. He uses deep focus technique, deep depth of field, where both foreground and background are simultaneously in focus. Cameron is an old school director who always considered Stanley Kubrick his main inspiration, because if you think about it, it's immediately clear how strongly 2001: A Space Odyssey influenced Cameron with its realistic effects. It's precisely this realism that Cameron tries to replicate, but for our generation. Look at any underwater scene in Avatar. In every frame, dozens of layers of information. For example, in my favorite shot, when Jake Sully tries to tame the skimwing. First we see how the creature ripples in the water, creating bubbles and waves, and when Jake starts flying, the water at that moment sprays toward the camera, completely drenching it. Did you notice? The camera lens literally gets wet from the water. Then, during the flight, we can see how birds fly away, because of the skimwing's movements. And then follows a POV shot of Jake Sully as he tries to hold on to the animal, while the camera on the skimwing statically films him. But the most realistic moment for me is when they both plunge underwater, and you can literally feel the wind, the air, and the sharp descent, and then the impact with the water's surface. And this isn't the only example in the film. You can pause the film at any second and study the frame like a painting. Every element works. Every element is rendered. Every element lives its own life. This is called perceptual realism, the realism of perception. Not photorealism, but precisely the realism of how we perceive reality. Richness of information, density of the world. In interviews, Cameron said he was inspired by documentary ocean filming. He wanted Pandora to feel not like a fantasy world, but like a place you could visit on vacation. A place where you can feel the water temperature, hear the sound of waves, smell the salt. He even developed the biology of Pandora's ocean, why this fish is this color, why this plant moves exactly this way, why light refracts at this angle.
When we are designing creatures for Avatar, we often start with metaphors. The Tulkun is evocative of a whale, but when you look at it, this is not a whale at all. There's many, many different things different with it. You may not literally know exactly what is referencing, but you feel it.
One of the main reasons that we've made the garments to completion is the motion of the garment cannot be understood without having the whole piece. So if something's heavy or feathery or light or stringy or fringy, the way these things move in air, standing in a breeze, underwater for sure, which is a huge part of the movie, you really have to have the sample to see what happens to it.
All these details may be imperceptible, but our brain reads them, and the world begins to seem real. Because reality isn't perfect, it's complex, it's chaotic, it's full of details we don't notice, but that shape our perception. And when these details disappear, when the background turns into a blurred spot, when hair moves too perfectly, when light falls too correctly, Our brain sounds the alarm. This is fake.
But yeah, it's a really tricky thing. It really did present challenges, especially that interface. I think underwater, not so bad. Obviously above water, you're okay. But as soon as you get a creature or a character, perhaps even falling into the water, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, a lot of simulation, a lot of back and forward between the effects team and the animation team. Water is, I think, 800 times denser than air. So the way that something travels through the air versus what happens to the travel of that object when it hits the water, it's something that I think viewers are used to seeing. If we don't get that right, then simulations break.
But there's another layer, deeper. It's what film theorist Laura Marks calls haptic visuality, cinema that appeals not only to our sight, but to our sense of touch. Haptic visuality is a cinematic and artistic concept, where vision becomes a sense of touch, moving beyond mere sight to evoke bodily sensations, textures, and memories through close-up details, grainy images, and surface focus, making the viewer feel physically engaged with the screen's material presence rather than just observing from a distance. Developed by theorist Laura Marks, it describes a multisensory experience where the eyes feel textures like skin, activating senses of touch, smell, and taste, often seen in intercultural cinema to convey embodied cultural experience. Look at the Navi's skin. Light passes through it. This is called subsurface scattering, subsurface light scattering. The same effect that makes human skin alive when light passes through an ear or through fingers pressed against a flashlight. Like in this shot when light passes through Loak's ears. Cameron spent years recreating this effect for the Navi, so we'd see not blue people, but living beings with blood under their skin, with capillaries, with texture. The same with the physics of water and character-body interaction. For example, here Took dives underwater, and we literally see how her face expands due to light refraction. Light rays coming from the object bend at the water-air boundary, creating an apparent magnified image. This is what James Cameron created Avatar for, to immerse us in an alien world with real conditions and laws of physics. But details and realism can't work without one thing, the right color. Avatar's palette is based not on aesthetics, but on biological logic. Have you wondered why avatars from the Metkayina clan have much lighter skin than Na'vi avatars? Because their skin tone suits their aquatic environment, and their ripple-like stripes mimic the movement of water, allowing them to blend seamlessly into their surroundings. And it's precisely the play with color that emphasizes differences between Metkayina and Na'vi, thanks to where they lived. In Pandora's dark forests, blue avatars easily hide in foliage, and light turquoise Metkayina blend with water in their reef environment. Nature in Pandora looks incredibly realistic. Now compare with Aquaman's palette, neon green, toxic orange, acid purple. It looks like a video game because the colors detached from reality. Such colors are rare in nature, and our brain knows it. But in Avatar, every shade convinces us. Yes, that's exactly how an ocean on another planet would look. That's exactly how these creatures would glow. That's exactly how light would play in this water. And if you look at examples from recent Marvel projects, you can see that characters literally perform against blurred backgrounds. Like in Ant-Man, where backdrops look like AI drew them. There's no logic in colors. Even though we're watching the microworld, we should perceive it correctly. But here you don't believe a single frame because you don't feel the impact of how the environment affects the film's heroes. The exact same air and world logic as in a studio shoot, even though we're watching the quantum realm. It's simply terrible. We don't feel in the actor's performance that they're in a completely different universe, because they forget another rule that made Avatar films so realistic. And James Cameron understands perfectly that graphics, no matter how super realistic, can't convey one thing, the impact of environment on heroes. And it's the actors who handle this task.
There are different ways to make films that have CG characters. What we're interested in with performance capture is the totality of the performance. Physical, emotional, facial, the eyes, everything. The actor creates the emotion. The actor creates the moment. I find as a director, I'm much more attuned to the actors because that's all I have to worry about. I'm not distracted by the camera move or the extras in the background. I'm just there for them. That's all I care about. That's all I'm watching. It's an amazing process. It's also the only way to do it.
All Avatar films take place in a soundstage, and actors are dressed in funny motion capture suits with white dots on them. But despite this, actors use imagination and experience every emotion for real, which makes their reaction to the world believable. But why does Avatar need such realistic graphics? Why does Cameron invest more effort in visuals than in plot and characters? I think Cameron does this because he believes in cinema's power to create worlds we can believe in, not as fantasy, but as alternative reality.
And this is one of the processes that makes this film feel so real, is that it was real. Now we're underwater. We're really fighting underwater. And so that's part of the process of making it real. One of the things I love about working with Jim is that he will create that environment for you. If we need real fire, there's gonna be real fire in that stage. If we need those physical things in our hands to interact with to make it real, it will be there.
A place where we can live another life, feel other sensations, see other beauty. Honestly, I even forget plot details because I simply enjoy watching slice of life, how characters learn something new in a completely different environment. Modern cinema often forgets this. It chases speed, quantity, brand recognition. CGI becomes a tool for saving time and money, not for creating wonder. You remember what unreal conditions VFX and CGI workers work under at Marvel Studios. James Cameron understood this, and for all 13 years organized a logical structure by which graphics in all his films would be made in an organized way, without rush and without mistakes that could kill all the magic of his world. Cameron remembers that cinema isn't just a picture on screen, it's an experience, it's a sensation. It's the moment when you forget you're sitting in a theater and plunge into the ocean with the heroes. That while watching the film, you also want to swim in water, feel its warmth, learn what it's like to swim on sea creatures. It's the moment when you believe blue people more than a real actor speaking against an empty background. Because belief isn't just a question of technology, it's a question of aesthetics. Will you want to visit Pandora after watching the film? If the answer is yes, then James Cameron knows what he's doing.
You commit yourself to immerse and to go deep. With the right movie, it will hit you 5 times harder, meaning better. We set the table for those emotional experiences by putting you in the place. So walking through the Metcaina village, you feel like you're walking on those woven walkways, being underwater, interacting with these creatures, riding through, enormous waves. You feel like you're there. To me, I think of it as all one fabric. And just that feeling of being there, palpably there, present with these characters, going through it with them. The atmos, the vision, it all conspires together to make that more powerful and more tangible.